It's Thursday, April 9th, 2009, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville. Produced and distributed by the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws in Washington, D.C., this is your NORML Daily Audio Stash, the growing truth about cannabis. Welcome to the most popular podcast regarding marijuana in all of America and all the world, featuring interviews with scientists, politicians, doctors, prohibition policy activists, regular cannabis consumers, musicians, and NORML staff and NORML's board of directors, along with music and comedy no other podcast can offer. You can always find out more about our show at our website, stash.norml.org, and continue the education and conversation on our blog as well. We're ending marijuana prohibition with education, one listener at a time. The podcasting and blogging technology for the NORML Daily Audio Stash is provided by Red Aphid Interactive Media. For your professional web design needs, visit redaphid.com. Buenos tardes. Soy Radical Russ. Bienvenidos a NORML en español. Necesitamos su ayuda a terminar la guerra en la marihuana. La prohibición de la marihuana daña a muchos latinos y sus familias. La legalización de la marihuana diezmaría las carteles y narcotraficantes mexicanos. Ensámblanos, por favor, para ayudar a proteger a los niños y a preservar la libertad y el aislamiento para los adultos. Usted puede ahora encontrar NORML en español por norml.org/vertical español, que visita. Muchas gracias. Now we're really testing the limits of my childhood Spanish. What I was trying to say is that NORML is now available in Spanish at norml.org/espanol. That's norml.org/espanol. So let all of our Spanish-speaking friends know about that if they want to pick up some information. It's something I definitely have an eye on in my new job as outreach coordinator to reach out to the Latino community who actually use marijuana at lower rates than whites, but of course are busted, arrested, and sent to prison much more often than white folks are. For some other features on the NORML Daily Audio Stash blog, check them out at stash.norml.org. I've got a great satirical piece up there that was found by one of our stashers from a working mother whose blog is entitled Jocelyn's Corner. A great little satirical take on why we should not legalize marijuana. It is kind of a joke, folks. You have to understand satire, but go check that one out. And of course, our own Paul Armentano, the deputy director of NORML, has his new post up at the Hills Congress blog, one of the highest traffic blogs among people in the Washington Beltway. So check that out through the links at stash.norml.org. Leave your comments there so that the movers and shakers in Washington, D.C. can know we're serious about ending adult marijuana prohibition. Now, coming up on today's Daily Audio Stash, we've got quite a mix in our hemp headlines. In our Southern California scene with Terry Joyce, we are visited once again by Comedy Jesus, who tells us a little bit about his perspective on marijuana. For our Daily Toker Tunes brought to you by MarijuanaMusicAwards.com, we've got Rockin' Thursday with Bradley Fish and his Big Bag of Reefer. And in Cannabis Conversations at the end of the show, we'll be speaking with Kim Russell from People United for Medical Marijuana, trying to get an initiative passed in Florida to make it the first southern medical marijuana state. You'll be amazed at all the hurdles that the state puts in her path in order to try to pass an initiative by the popular will of the people. And on a personal note, my wife just informed me that her mother, my mother-in-law, who was going to be coming by the home to visit us for a couple of weeks, said she would come by for 2 weeks, but only if we wouldn't smoke pot during that 2 weeks. My answer to her was, it's a deal, so long as you don't take your insulin for 2 weeks. It's amazing how sometimes the people closest to us still harbor the strangest prejudices, fears, and misinformation about marijuana. Oh well, we'll see what we can do to educate her about the situation and let her know that she has nothing to fear, especially considering that medical marijuana is completely legal here in Oregon. All right, folks, time's a-wasting. Marijuana's not going to legalize itself. It's time for your NORML Daily Audio Stash.
Hello, I'm Paul Stanford from the Hemp and Cannabis Foundation, or THCF. Medical marijuana is legal in 13 states today, and THCF has clinics in 8 of those states. Our doctors help qualified patients obtain an authorization for medical marijuana in their state. Patients are eligible for medical marijuana with a history of either severe chronic pain and or nausea, cancer, AIDS or HIV, hepatitis, glaucoma, seizure disorders like epilepsy, chronic muscle spasms such as multiple sclerosis or asthma, neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's, and gastrointestinal disorders like IBS or Crohn's disease. If you or someone you know has one of these conditions, our doctors will help you obtain a permit for medical marijuana. THCF Medical Clinics has offices in Washington State, Oregon, California, Colorado, Hawaii, Nevada, Montana, and now Michigan. Call 1-800-723-0188 or go to the web at hemp.org or 1-800-723-0188.
Now it's time to take a look at the latest stories about marijuana from news organizations across America and around the world in our NORML Daily Audio Stash, Hemp Headlines. New biologically active compounds from cannabis. From Ars Technica. Although a lot of work has been done on cannabis, scientists have not identified every cannabinoid, so many research groups are continuing to identify and categorize the chemicals in cannabis. Samir Ross from the University of Mississippi led one such group in the discovery of 9 new cannabinoids, and they published the structures and biological activities of these chemicals in an article in the Journal of Natural Products. The researchers grew plants from high-potency Mexican cannabis sativa seeds and harvested the whole buds of mature female plants. They performed chemical extraction and purification procedures on the plant material to isolate the 9 cannabinoids. After figuring out the chemical structures, it was crucial to know how useful these molecules might be in terms of medicinal properties. The first good news was that none of the cannabinoids were toxic to cells extracted from African green monkey kidneys, which meant that they have potential as drugs. Upon closer inspection, several of the compounds had respectable biological activities as well. Compound 5 had potent anti-leishmanial activity, which makes it a possible candidate against leishmaniasis, a parasitic disease that is spread by the bite of the sandfly. Compound 8 was effective at killing Staphylococcus aureus, a frequent cause of staph infections. And Compound 7 had good activity against Candida albicans, a fungus that gives people oral and genital infections. The other cannabinoids weren't as biologically active, but they all had some drug potential. For instance, Compounds 2 and 6 were mildly effective against MRSA, and Compound 1 had some anti-malarial activity. The identification of these biologically relevant cannabinoids will give natural product chemists new ideas for future drugs. Even the less active ones can turn out to be useful, as chemists can make modifications of the structures that are more potent. Oh, cannabis, is there anything you can't do? Didn't these guys get the memo from the U.S. government that cannabis has, quote, no recognized medicinal value in the United States, end quote? Oh, wait, sorry, my bad. That's only raw, natural cannabis that is medically useless. If you break it down into its cannabinoid compounds, patent it, put it in a pill, mark it up 2,000 to 20,000% for a healthy profit, and require people to go through a doctor and a pharmacist to get it, if they can afford it and their insurance will cover it, then it has, quote, accepted medical use, end quote, and is only capable of, quote, moderate to low dependence, end quote. Mixed martial arts fighter Nick Diaz says smoking marijuana is part of his plan. For mainstream sports fans thirsting for an athlete to come completely clean about taboo subjects in sports, here's an introduction to mixed martial arts fighter Nick Diaz, who not only speaks openly, but is willing to answer follow-up questions. In an interview with the Los Angeles Times last week, Diaz said, quote, "I'm more consistent about everything being a cannabis user. I'm happy to get loaded, hear some good music. I remain consistent, and I have an easy way to deal with the drug tests. I can pass a drug test in 8 days with herbal cleansers. I drink 10 pounds of water and sweat out 10 pounds of water every day. I'll be fine." End quote. Unfortunately for Diaz, the state athletic commissions also banned marijuana use, and he tested positive for the illegal drug in Las Vegas after his impressive win over Japan's Takanori Gomi in early 2007. A state athletic commissioner in Nevada argued Diaz was numb to pain because of excessive marijuana in his system. Diaz's victory was vacated, he was fined, and suspended for 6 months. Keith Kaiser, Nevada State Athletic Commission's executive officer, said, quote, "The drug is banned because of the damage it does to the person taking it. It could make you lethargic, slow your reflexes, and those are dangerous things in a combat sport." End quote. Well, I'm sure Nick isn't firing up the roar right before entering the cage. Yeah, Keith, I'd agree. That sounds like a horrible idea. But let's say you're not completely reefer mad and somehow regular pot smoking slows a fighter's reflexes. How then did 25-year-old Nick rack up an 18-7 record? Is he just so lightning quick that even firing at below 100%, he's less lethargic than 18 other presumably well-trained non-pot smoking fighters trying to bash his face in? The California State Athletic Commission said Diaz would undergo drug testing before and after Saturday's fight. Diaz, however, argues marijuana eases problems he has battled since childhood, when he says he was diagnosed with attention deficit disorder and prescribed mood-altering medication. His rebellion as a youth forced him to relocate schools where he continually felt out of place, and he ultimately became a high school dropout. In Nick's first post-UFC fight, he tested positive for marijuana. He suspects someone tipped off authorities. Diaz said, quote, "I got high in my hotel room the night before every UFC fight," end quote. But Kaiser said Diaz was merely among 10 of 16 Pride Fighting Championship athletes who were tested that night. Said veteran fighter Frank Shamrock of Diaz, quote, "He definitely smokes marijuana. That's his own business. But it's not the greatest thing for the sport. We're fighting a stigma. Still, there's something refreshing about his honesty," end quote. Why is it not the greatest thing for mixed martial arts? You have guys like Sean Muscle Shark Shirk testing positive for steroids. Who could have seen that one coming, huh? And Caro Corn Syrup Parisian loaded up on pharmaceutical painkillers. Quite a performance-enhancing drug in a sport where you lose when the pain of a joint lock becomes unbearable and you tap out. I've never understood big pro sports' love for the finest medical technologies in surgery, protective gear, pain-killing, hydration, and nutrition, and yet the total disdain for natural cannabis. Yeah, I know, pot's illegal, drugs are bad, okay? And what about the children? So, aside from all that, if you're an NBA superstar with a 9-figure contract, are you really going to consistently smoke an herb that slows your crossover dribble and hinders your shot? If you're an NFL lineman facing a pass-rushing defensive end who's 320 pounds and lightning quick, are you going to regularly take bong hits that slows your reaction to the snap count? Most importantly, if you're a mixed martial arts fighter facing a Brazilian jiu-jitsu expert who's going to spend the next 5 minutes trying to knock you out, choke you unconscious, or break your limbs, are you really going to hotbox the dressing room during the undercard? Signature gathering for Kalamazoo marijuana ordinance begins. So you have a small group of like-minded friends and you want to make a real difference. This type of ordinance may be just the kind of effort to attract attention as well as seeing a few less arrests. Most cities allow referendums to change their ordinances, and this type of change can be instrumental in getting more support from state representatives when they see the general public stands behind decriminalization. If you live in Kalamazoo, Michigan, your time to stand up is now. The Kalamazoo Coalition for Pragmatic Cannabis Laws is seeking to have an ordinance added to Kalamazoo's city charter that would make the possession of small amounts of marijuana the, quote, lowest priority for law enforcement, end quote. Martin Chilcutt, a member of the coalition, said, quote, "We're stunned at the amount of money being spent for pot arrests. It's the least dangerous of all drugs. We don't understand what law enforcement is afraid of. It's irrational fear," end quote. Ron Kramer, head of the Criminal Justice Department at Western Michigan University, said that the issue, quote, "seems to make sense." Kramer said, quote, "It's a sane proposal that's long overdue. It would let law enforcement focus on the real problems facing the city," end quote. Organizers will have to submit a total of at least 1,273 signatures of registered city voters to the Kalamazoo City Clerk by August 14th. The issue would then go before the City Commission, which would have 14 days to either adopt the measure or put it to the voters. The coalition is hoping to have the issue before the voters in the November election. Of course, the police don't think it's reasonable for the citizens to tell them what to do. After all, they really don't work for us to protect us. They work for themselves to protect themselves. Captain Joseph Taylor, commander of the Kalamazoo Valley Enforcement Team, which targets illegal drug use in Kalamazoo County, went a bit further, calling the proposal, quote, ludicrous. He said, quote, "This is a silly idea. It's a roundabout way of circumventing the more difficult process of getting marijuana legalized," end quote. Preliminary statistics for 2008 show that 1,593 controlled substance arrests were made in Kalamazoo. Of that number, 933 were for marijuana offenses, of which 173 were for felonies and 820 for misdemeanors, 87% of all the marijuana arrests. The average cost per arrest is $4,000, according to the coalition. If you live near Kalamazoo or know someone who does, check out their website at kzoocpcl.org. You see, Captain Taylor doesn't understand how the, quote, process of getting marijuana legalized, end quote, actually works. He doesn't understand that a war is fought battle by battle. Lowest priority initiatives are just another step that must be taken to finally end the war on pot.
So here's the deal. We've got this new president who seems really cool. I mean, the guy's well-spoken, he's open-minded, he seems to listen to people, and he's extremely well-educated. I mean, he graduated from Harvard Law School. But this is a guy who's admitted to smoking marijuana, that illegal leaf that just ruins people's lives. How could the president of the United States have ever done such a thing? Maybe because he knew it was less addictive than both alcohol and nicotine, and knew it can be consumed responsibly. But it's probably been a while since he's smoked a joint. So if I had one thing to say to Barack Obama about cannabis, it would probably be something like, "Hey dude, I'm one of 80 million people in your country who has smoked marijuana, and so are you." Or maybe I would say over 700,000 people were arrested in this last year for marijuana-related charges. Or something like, let's re-examine this law altogether. Or possibly that $1.3 billion is spent annually fighting marijuana, not including the cost of prison management and construction. Or I might just end up saying, hey man, you know the facts. Let's fix this mess.
Weed.
That's Hooey Valley, hooey-ha.
Weed.
Where any office boy or young mechanic.
Now it's time for a report from the epicenter of American cannabis culture with our Southern California correspondent. You know her from ComedyNation.com and her appearance as a finalist on Season 1 of NBC's Last Comic Standing. It's our friend, cannabis comedian and marijuana activist, the lovely and talented Terry Joyce. How you doing, Terry Joyce?
I'm doing very well today. Very well.
Any big happenings this past week down there for you?
Well, you know, it's I didn't get to do the benefit for Rich and Joanne on Saturday.
What happened?
Yeah, that was kind of a bummer. My dad it was in the hospital, and so I missed that. But I've got to call and find out how that went this weekend. So.
Well,
really.
Did you hear anything from the benefit? I mean, how did it turn out? Besides.
Well, that's what I don't know yet. I have to give them a call and find out how the benefit went. I know that they only had about $1,500 left to raise. So, it looked like the last benefit raised a lot of money. They'd have auctions and, people contributing, and the tickets to get in. So I think that they probably made their goal, but I should call and find out.
Okay.
Because if they haven't, then we'll have to do another one.
Right, of course. And we'll hope you'll be able to get to that one. And, just regarding, what's happening in California lately, there's been a lot of talk in the news media about Tom Amiano's legalization proposal. How are people reacting to that down there?
We're celebrating. We're having a big party down here.
Yeah.
No, I think that we're hopeful. Realistically, I think we're hopeful that, and to me, it's promising. But in the marijuana community, it's definitely, we definitely support it down here.
Yeah, well, we've got a lot of fun stuff happening here. April kind of is the month that begins the whole festival season. We started off with the Hash Bash in Michigan a week ago, and then, of course, Tax Day's coming up, and then 420, and then the March, and then next thing you know, we're deep into summertime, and that opens up a whole lot of questions for people that are learning about marijuana, and maybe they don't know a whole lot about the culture. And I wonder if you have anyone we can turn to who might be an authoritative figure, someone who might be able to give us the answers that we seek in these troubled times.
Yes, I do. Actually, Russ, I meditate regularly, and I love to smoke a little herb and meditate, and I connected to this person as I've connected to him before. I'd like to bring on the show Comedy Jesus.
Comedy Jesus.
Yeah, Comedy Jesus to answer our questions.
Well, thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Well, hello, Comedy Jesus. How are you?
I am doing fantastic.
So
you guys well?
Oh yeah,
we're doing very well.
It's a little more blood, though. If you have any favors for me,
I might see what I can do about the rain this week.
Yeah,
thank you.
We definitely want to pass the message along. If you could just tell your dad, thanks a lot for the sativa. It's one of the best creations, and we just love it.
Oh yeah, I recommend if you're growing it 50% bong water and 50% holy water.
Now, Comedy Jesus, I have a few questions for you that I'd like to get out of the way. And first of all is we look through the Bible and the creation stories, and of course a lot of people in our movement point to Genesis 1:29, where they say, "I have given you every herb bearing seed, and for you it shall be as meat." Can you just settle once and for all? Did your dad really intend to put pot all over the place, and is that why he had to create Republicans to get rid of it all?
Yeah, it's kind of that's part of the balance of nature. If you think about it, using the word meat in there, haven't you ever had like a really thick, delicious bud that, like, as you break it up, it almost feels like you're breaking up a steak? The really super thick, it feels heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about there.
All right.
Wow.
And of course, a lot of us are working in medical marijuana, especially Terry. She helps a lot of people with medical marijuana there in the state of California. We've got 12 other states that recognize medical marijuana. Was there a lot of use of marijuana for medicinal purposes back in the day when you were healing lepers and such?
That was definitely part of it, I gotta say. But back in that day, we weren't even we were at the point where there just wasn't a whole lot of disease. The lepers and some people, but we didn't have a lot of the oil companies polluting all of our food and water and basically our soil. So we didn't use it medically. We had what was called medically fun marijuana. And it was more of a meditative, like that's what I did in the desert for 40 days, right?
Right.
And we did it basically because it was fun, and I think people overlook that sometimes and go right to the medicine. I think it should be both.
Oh, I think you're right. Terry, do you have any questions for Comedy Jesus?
I do. I do. How do you feel feel about taxing marijuana? I mean, there's a lot of talk about legalizing marijuana. It's a billion-dollar industry, and the tax revenue could help our country out. How do you feel about that? Association of money to the plant.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a famous story. You remember in the Bible when I turned over the tables in the temple, right? I was upset about taxes, and that particular guy, by the way, was part of a very big conglomerate. I would say he was one of the early signs of a corporation. I was trying to nip that in the bud. That didn't work out too well for humanity, did it? So I'm not a big fan. I haven't been a big fan of corporate welfare. But as far as taxes, I actually love taxes. I think they're a great idea. They allow for basically for humans and humanity to evolve, for societies to have a middle, which is always an important thing, to have a middle class. Social Darwinism just makes it work out to just rich and poor. So I like taxes, and I think it'd be a great idea to have marijuana out there and taxed.
Well, Comedy Jesus, you were famous for once saying something like, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. So, it seems like you've always been kind of okay with the whole taxation concept. What do you have to say to the people? There's a lot of people who invoke your name in their prohibition of marijuana. And they say, it's bad for the kids and we need everyone to be sober and clean living. What do you have to say to those people to dissuade them from that notion?
Well, those people, let's just say that I have bailed them out of a lot of stuff. In a way, I'm kind of the world's biggest bailout, and I'm kind of tired of always having these people using my name for crazy things. So I'm going to now put a special Jesus tax on those people, and we're going to go back to the pre-Reagan 91% tax after their let's do it this way, after their first $20,000. Anytime that they mention my name, that they got to send that right to me. And I'm going to, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to use it for everything that they can't stand, so they learn to grow up.
Well, Jesus, I do have another question in terms of, now, do you find smoking a little herb before we talk to you or before we meditate, is marijuana like somewhat like a lubricant into the, let's say, the cosmic or the higher self?
Yeah, I'm surprised these days. I've been getting a lot of prayers from people, and they actually lie to me. Like, if there should be one time where you could just, be honest, come on, prayer, right? I'm surprised at that. Now, what marijuana does is it removes all the filters, so, it's very clear and very obvious. Like, nobody's going to lie. They're just going to say what's on their mind. It removes some of those, like, ridiculous filters that society makes us put up. So I highly recommend that, and I think churches should have that right next to the communion wine. There should be a little bit of, a little bit of that dragon juice right in the next cup over.
Well said. As important as we found marijuana to be on this planet, as far as using it for hemp, for industrial purposes, using it for medicine, or as you said earlier, Jesus, using it to get for fun, I'm wondering, why didn't you make any mention of hemp or marijuana in the Bible or during the Sermon on the Mount? Or if you did it get censored out?
It's kind of a Da Vinci Code thing. There's a lot of coded things that I put in there. Plus, my first Old Testament Bible was made with hemp paper, and I figured people would just kind of get it. It was so commonplace. It's kind of like, I didn't mention anything in the Bible about, you should definitely not eat cactus right off the, jumping cactus. Well, I didn't need to mention that. It was, everyone knew it. It's always been very common sense. So I didn't feel like, to be honest, I didn't know that someday there would be Republicans who would go crazy against it and then make it illegal. I really thought, we joked about it. We thought, hey, let's make some Republicans. We didn't really think it would happen, So it's surprising to me that it did. That's why I didn't mention it.
I see. So this kind of slipped your notice as things were going down. I guess you were quite busy at the time.
I was I was very preoccupied at times. I had a lot of, I guess you could say, a lot of, fires burning.
Yeah, good way to put it. Well, Comedy Jesus, thanks for showing up here on the Daily Audio Stash and blessing us with your presence. We appreciate it very much. Any other performances or upcoming events that we need to let our listeners know about?
Yes. Well, my live DVD is going to be out in the Blockbusters and all the other. Which, by the way, I can't wait till Blockbuster goes down, even though they're putting out my DVD. But the Comedy Jesus Live PowerPoint on the Mount is out now on DVD. Get it on ComedyJesusShow.com. And we got a big show coming up on the 18th in Hollywood at the Fake Gallery.
All right, for 420 weekend, we're looking forward to it. And Terry, what you got going for 420 weekend?
I'm actually going to be in Montana during that time.
Ooh.
And between gigs, I'll be in Spokane on the 19th, and then on the 20th I'll be on my way probably to Missoula. I'm looking for some place to hang out that night and toke one up and celebrate.
Well, we'll put the word out to the folks with Montana NORML. Maybe they can hook up with you and make life a lot more fun in Big Sky Country for you.
Oh, that would be nice.
All right. Terry Joyce and Comedy Jesus, thanks for joining us here on the Daily Audio Stash.
Thanks, you guys.
If I were to tell you that in America, right now, over 1 million children sell marijuana, what would you think? Would you think that any public policy that creates over 1 million teenage marijuana dealers needs to be re-examined and possibly amended? You would not be alone. The members of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, aka NORML, have been working since 1970 to reform marijuana laws such that responsible adults, not children, sell and use marijuana. Isn't it high time to reform America's misguided marijuana laws? This is Alan St. Pierre, Executive Director of NORML in Washington, D.C. Only concerned citizens can effectively end the federal government's nearly 70-year-old prohibition on responsible adult marijuana sales and use. Want to know more about how you can help? Contact us at NORML, toll free, 888-67-NORML, or by visiting the organization's popular and informative webpage at NORML, NORML.org.
The battle to end adult marijuana prohibition can sometimes seem endlessly frustrating and impossible to overcome. One way we bond as a community and draw strength to continue is by rejuvenating our spirit through art and music. The Marijuana Music Awards exist to recognize those sonic artists in all genres of music who feature a ganja-friendly message to motivate and inspire all the cannabis community. Our daily Toker tunes, brought to you by MarijuanaMusicAwards.com, feature the finest in blues, rock, jazz, hip-hop, rap, reggae, country, bluegrass, and dance music to enhance that 420 feeling and refresh all you stashers for another day on the front lines of the drug war. Enjoy this cut from MarijuanaMusicAwards.com and visit our blog at stash.normal.org to learn how you can vote for your favorites and enter your Toker tunes in the 2009 Marijuana Music Awards. Rockin' Thursday's song comes to us from Israel, Big Bag of Reefer by Bradley Fish. Bradley Fish has just finished his third CD for Sony Records. Currently, Bradley is creating new music, soaking in the new influences of Jerusalem. Bradley incorporates his exposure to a diverse range of musical styles from around the world in his songs. Bradley Fish has performed at many gigs and festivals in Israel, Germany, and the USA, where he performed before 35,000 people following a speech by the Dalai Lama in Chicago. In both Israel and the USA, Bradley has shared the stage with many nationally and internationally known acts, including members of Jefferson Airplane, Janis Joplin's backing band, collaborators with Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead, and many more. Bradley says his future bio, quote, is being lived and created as we speak, end quote. To keep updated about Bradley Fish, check out bradleyfish.com and myspace.com/BradleyFishIsrael. Nominated in 2008's Global Marijuana Music Awards, our Rockin' Thursday tune is available as an MP3 download for registered stashers. This is Bradley Fish with Big Bag of Reefer.
We're running low on toothpaste. The shampoo bottle coughs. We're down to just one towel, so we take turns drying off. The soap is made of tiny pieces of neatly melted chunks, and they just turn the water off. So now we smell like skunks. We don't mind, we got a big bag of reefer, small pack of papers, twist up the former with a skin from the ladder. Get high and stay there, flash through the fresh air, blast all of our cares away for a while. Just for a little while. The boombox eats up all the tapes, the record player scratches, the channels that our TV gets come only in brief snatches. We can't afford no magazines, no newspapers or books. Our paintings all sit on the floor, cause we don't have any hooks. It's alright, we got a big bag of reefer, small pack of papers, twist up the former with the skin from the ladder. Get high and stay there, flash through the fresh air, blast all of our cares away for a while. Just for a little while. There's nothing in the fridge to eat unless you're a moth. It don't work anyhow, so we just shrug it off. There's pizza boxes in the kitchen stacked up 10 feet tall. Yeah, when you scrape off the cardboard, you don't eat it all. It goes good with a big bag of reefer, small pack of papers, twist up the former with the skin from the ladder. Get high and stay there, flash through the fresh air, all of our cares away for a while. Just for a little while.
Of Americans no longer support arresting and jailing marijuana smokers, and nearly as many support the medical patients having access to medical marijuana. and over 80% of our citizens now believe the war on drugs is an ineffective failure. So the question is, when will the government's misguided war on adult marijuana smokers finally end? When? Simple. When you and your like-minded friends, family, and coworkers get involved with an organization such as the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, also known as NORML. My name is Keith Stropp, and I founded the organization in 1970. Contact us at NORML, toll-free, 888-67-NORML, or by visiting the organization's up-to-date webpage at www.norml.org.
Legalization, decriminalization, lowest law enforcement priority, medical marijuana, ganja sacrament, consumer cannabis, industrial hemp. The world of marijuana law reform involves many different aspects of cannabis that intersect nearly every public policy discussion in America, including healthcare, the economy, global climate change, law enforcement and prisons, immigration, religion, free speech, energy policy, and war. Now we take a look at how re-legalizing marijuana will change the world in our NORML daily audio stash, Cannabis Conversations. We've been following a lot of states here at the NORML daily audio stash where medical marijuana is making its way through the state legislatures, and a situation exists in the United States where there's only 26 states in which the people themselves can write initiatives to try to get medical marijuana passed. One such state is Florida, and we're always looking to the great American South for some movement on medical marijuana. Joining us here to talk about that is Kim Russell, the founder and chair of People United for Medical Marijuana. And Kim, welcome to the stash.
Thank you so much for having me.
So medical marijuana in Florida, before we start talking about what your initiative will do, has this pretty much been a non-starter at the legislature?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay.
We have been, of course, lobbying them for years to try to do this type of movement. And the response that I got is it would be a miracle if that type of legislation ever made it through the House and the Senate. So that's what prompted me to go ahead and start the ballot initiative process to get the laws changed.
Okay, so Florida is one of the 26 states where the people can actually have a ballot initiative and vote on it. But talking to you in the pre-interview, it seems like Florida's got a really crazy and twisted way of doing this. Tell the folks what you're up against as far as just barely starting this signature drive and all the hurdles you have to clear.
Well, the first hurdle, we have to first collect 70,000 signatures in order for the Supreme Court to review the amendment to make sure it is how they want it. If they find anything wrong, we have to start all over again after drafting a new amendment and getting it approved. We have to start collecting the signatures from scratch.
So Kim, if I understand that right, you're saying that you come up with a petition and there's some body that certifies that you can go collect those signatures. The Secretary of State, right. Is that right?
The Division of Elections.
Okay, so the Division of Elections says, okay, here's your petition. You can go out and collect signatures. You go out and collect 70,000 of them. You take them to the Supreme Court and they say, oh, well, we don't like this clause here or that word there. And you got to start all over again?
That technically could happen.
Wow.
Yes. They do try to make it difficult for us to change any laws here, but there are attorneys that specialize in writing amendments and that have done this before, and that's the kind of attorney that I found that is very experienced. So hopefully we won't fall up to that hurdle, but like anything else, it just comes down to politics.
Yeah, I guess so.
If we have the politicians behind us, I think we will have a lot more likely of a chance of not having any bumps in the road.
Okay, so let's put on our optimist hat here. You get your petition, you take it out, you get your 70,000 signatures. The Supreme Court says, yeah, this is great. What happens next?
Next, we have to go collect an additional 630,000 signatures. We're going to need over 700,000 signatures, but we have 10 million registered voters in the state. So it's not a problem. It will not be a problem getting the signatures. It's just getting the word out and letting everybody know that we're doing this and getting everybody organized.
Well, that's what we hope to be doing here for you, is getting the word out.
Thank you.
What do you think the support is among Floridians for medical marijuana?
I think we have an overwhelming amount of support for medical marijuana. The most recent polls are as high as 80% of people here want to see this type of legislature. The national poll, I'm sure you're aware of, that was done by AARP, showed a 72% of their members thought that this should be national-type policy. And we have a lot of retired people here in this
Yeah.
state. So surprisingly, you would think that the elderly population would hurt us, but I think it's really going to help us.
Yeah, we've seen that in the polls that we've taken, that the largest support for marijuana law reform is between the young people that are before age 30 or 35 and then the older people that are after age 50. It seems it's that middle age where people get a little turned off to the notion.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so again, with our optimist hat on, you get your petition through and you get your 70,000. Supreme Court says go ahead. You get another 630,000. Now this thing's on the ballot. And so all that needs to happen is for people to vote for it, right?
Well, yeah, that's it. Just have the people vote. In Florida, we have to get 60% of the voters to say yes in half of our counties.
Okay.
Which more than half of our counties are liberal-type counties. So we shouldn't have a problem reaching those benchmarks, but most other states are 50%, and we are up at the 60% level. Mm. But like I said, we really don't anticipate that being a problem because the approval rate is so high.
Yeah. So technically speaking, you could have, all the, half the counties plus one vote for it at 60% or higher. And it wouldn't matter if all the other counties voted 100% against it, right?
Correct.
Wow. Who wrote that Constitution down there anyway?
Well, that's the thing. It keeps getting changed all the time. The 60% rule was just recently added to the Constitution to try to make it more difficult. So it's changing all the time.
Is this the 60% rule in response to previous initiatives? Do you guys have a lot of initiatives that go through?
We do have a lot that get put up. Not all of them are passed. And,
sure.
And yeah, I would imagine that is exactly what prompted that type of legislation.
Okay. So, all right, once again, everything goes great. You get your signatures, you get on the ballot. More than 60% of the people in more than half the counties vote for it. Medical marijuana is now law. So what kind of medical marijuana law are you going to end up with?
Well, the law the amendment that we have right now is for the possession, purchase, the ability to grow, cultivation, and to obtain. It gives any patient the right to do all those things with marijuana. We do not have the ability to legislate exactly what our limits are as far as how many plants somebody could have, how many ounces of possession people could have. Those are all things that we unfortunately have to leave up to the legislators to figure out, a taxing system, a dispensary system, all that type of stuff. So I hope that they will be asking my opinion and all that, and I do my very best to do what I can for the patients in the state. But I can tell you, we're not going to have limits such as Oregon, who I believe it's 24 ounce.
That's right.
Limit or something possession.
A pound and a half.
Will not happen in this state.
I wouldn't think so.
No.
It does sound kind of scary to me though, with what you've told me about, it would be a miracle if this kind of legislation got through the legislature. So it sounds like the legislature's a little anti-medical marijuana. It would sure be a shame if you went to all this trouble and got all the people of Florida behind you to vote for this. And then in the rules making process, the legislators might say, oh, okay, well, you can have 1 plant and 2 grams. They could do all sorts of terrible things in the rulemaking process, couldn't they?
Well, technically, they absolutely could. That's why in this campaign, it is a 2-step process. We are absolutely lobbying our legislators through this whole process to gain their support. And we've actually gotten a lot of them that said they would love to see this type of legislation go through, but they don't think they have the voter support.
Aha.
So we're trying to convince the voters, as well as signing the petition, to please, please, please write your legislators and let them know what kind of support we have. If we can show, an overwhelming support, my real goal is to get them to go ahead and do something this fall and put a bill in. But, we'll have our backup plan.
Right. Good thinking. And if the bill, if your initiative did make it to the vote and got, overwhelming numbers of support, I would think the political tide would turn a little bit in Florida.
Absolutely. They would feel they have re-elections coming up and they better work with helping some people here.
Sure thing. Well, if people want to get involved with People United for Medical Marijuana down there in Florida, are there some phone numbers or email or website addresses you can give out?
Yes, please go to www.pufmm.org, and you can find all types of information on there. We are working on putting local contacts for each district on there, but for the meantime, if you just want to send us an email, we'll try to get you routed to the right people. We're just trying to get organized right now, and you can imagine the overwhelming response that we've had in the past 2 weeks. So
yeah, I get a lot of emails actually from Floridians that are looking to fight these stupid marijuana laws. So I'll send those references your way. Is the email contact info on the website as well?
It sure is.
Okay.
It sure is. Thank you so much for your help. Just a little, I'm sure you heard recently about the former Drug-Free America director.
Yes.
Coming out. I spoke with him on the phone today, and he is behind us.
Oh, well, that's excellent. We hope if you get an interview or some sort of article with him, you share it with us, and we'll post it for everyone to see.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your help.
You're welcome. Kim Russell is the founder and chair of People United for Medical Marijuana, working on a medical marijuana initiative in the state of Florida. Check them out at www.puffmm. People United for Medical Marijuana, puffmm.org. Kim, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for downloading the NORML Daily Audio Stash, the growing truth about cannabis. We are produced by the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws in Washington, D.C. Our executive producer is Alan St. Pierre. Our deputy director is Paul Armentano. Our webmaster is Brian Judy. And web production is provided by Red Aphid Interactive Media. As always, you can catch up on the latest information about marijuana at www.norml.org. And you can interact and download from our Audio Stash blog at stash.norml.org. For everyone here at NORML, I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville, hoping all your harvests are bountiful and your encounters with law enforcement are non-existent. We leave you today with some reminders from our activist agenda at stash.norml.org/agenda. This weekend on Saturday is the Oregon NORML Cardholders Meeting in Portland, Oregon for medical marijuana patients. Check out ornorml.org for more details. Sunday, of course, is Easter, so we wish a happy Easter to those of you celebrating. Next week, there's meetings for the Coalition of Medical Marijuana New Jersey. There's Tax Day protests on Wednesday, Tax Day. And, of course, next weekend is the 420 weekend with all sorts of stuff going on Saturday, Sunday, and on Monday, 420. Check out the agenda, stash.norml.org/agenda for more details. And to get your event on the calendar, send me an email at stash@norml.org. Thanks for downloading the podcast and helping to make the Stash the pulse of grassroots marijuana law reform in the United States and around the world. And until next time, take care of each other, tokers.